aren't, so that you know clearly, because you see, ever since I was a kid, they said your rights finish where the other guys start. But what's the line? How do you know where the line is?
Mm-hmm.
And the way you know is if you're initiating force against the other guy, you've crossed the line. Vice versa. If he's initiating force against you, he's crossed the line. But both libertarians and objectivists forget that initiating force is not the only way you can cross the line. There's another way, which is fraud.
Exactly, yeah.
Scamming people.
It's a form of theft.
Right. So that's why I mentioned in the beginning of this interview, what is the value that's being protected? Because what happens when I put a gun to your head, I force you to go act against your judgment. But when I lie to you about whether the watch I'm selling to you is gold or not, I'm not using force, but I'm also getting you to go against your judgment, because if you knew the truth, your judgment would be different. So I'm getting you to go against your judgment.
Right.
And that's the value that's being protected. You see?
Yeah.
And that eliminates all these arguments. Oh, well, in this case, the violation of right, they didn't use force. That's true. It's not only force. It's also through fraud.
Right, in the form of theft in terms of like contract theory, right? You're selling me some apples on the contingent that these are good apples, right? So I'll transfer the title ownership of my money on the condition that these are good apples.
That they're not rotten.
Yeah, that they're not rotten. But if you give me the
At
apples,
the bottom of the barrel, they're all rotten.
they're all rotten, right? And then so you don't have permission for that money, right? It was not given consent towards that, and that would be the fraud, right?
Right.
And in that case, yes, consumer people or.
But there was no force involved.
Right. Yeah. But
you
violation.
know, objectivists have a rationale to try to make that force. In my view, it's not force. It's just you're protecting judgment, and there's two ways to violate somebody's judgment.
Right. I find kind of the same thing, right? You either advocate for consent or you don't, right? You know, it's kind of black and white. Ayn Rand would have said, "There's no gray area." Right, gray areas kind of acknowledge that there are black and white positions. You can't have gray without either one of them.
Yeah, either you are acting freely or you aren't.
Right. Yeah.
But either you are allowed to follow your judgment,
Mm-hmm.
understanding the situation, or you aren't.
Right.
So, fraud is inducing you to do something against your judgment by misleading you as to the facts, so you won't follow you will follow a mistaken judgment. If you knew the facts, you would do something different.
Right. I guess sometimes I feel like that way with Bernie Sanders and a lot of politicians in that way, right? And the things that they kind of put out there and trying to appeal to, you know, bread and circuses kind of promises, empty promises, right? Misleading people into believing that politics will set them free. Bernie Sanders is going to provide them
They're all
paradise.
doing it now.
Yeah, they're all doing it now.
Trump, Sanders, Hillary,
Yeah.
everyone.
Everyone.
There's no good candidates. I'm going crazy because I like to vote. A lot of people here don't like to vote, but I like to vote.
You like to vote?
And I like to find somebody that I can vote for.
But
Sometimes
people,
you can't.
Right. Wouldn't you see like these people though, like these politicians though? They would be advocating for the initiation, of course, though, to have their policies or
Absolutely,
opinions.
it's a redistribution of wealth is.
It's still theft, right?
It is theft. It's legalized theft.
That's what they call it. Yeah.
So,
You're not allowed to steal. We'll call it.
Right,
Yeah.
and essentially it's theft, but it's legalized because it's done legally.
Right.
Which is, a corruption of the constitutional perspective of not depriving people of their property without due process of law, which for a long time protected American citizens, until we got some new decisions by the Supreme Court. But originally, that's kind of redistribution of wealth was out the window.
Right. Yeah. In terms like the Constitution in that areas, there's no one signed the Constitution either, right? They sign it in witness whereof, right? And like when you go to a notarizer, they sign it in witness whereof. Not that I'm going to be held liable to the terms and responsibilities of the contract and outlined in there. Right.
Well, the Constitution was signed by people that were elected to be representatives of the various parts of the country with it. they came
Yeah,
from.
and as a contract,
and-
that would be held only to those people, right? If I had a contract with you and me and us here, the terms and limits are between our party, right? Not with
Right,
everyone else that's
but
not.
The thing is that they had agreed at the time, at this time, that all the people believed that they needed a government in order to have their individual rights protected. And what they agreed to do is, on proper functions of government, to allow majority rule and to have a representative vote for what they actually what would go into law. So you and me can make a contract where an underlining social contract